Hello and welcome to this tutorial on making .model files for your models for TF2 Custom models, for your mods, or just replacing models of pre-existing weapons in the game. So let's begin. So the first thing you need to do is actually create the model, which I've found the easiest way to do this is in Blender. And as you can see here, I've got some Blender source tools which we need to download. Now it tells you how to install it here, but it's pretty easy, so I'll go through it quickly. You just download here, then once you've got the zip file, go into Blender, Preferences, Install from Disk, and locate that zip file. Once you've done that, once you click on that zip file, it should install it and it'll come up here, Blender Source Tools, which will allow us to export the SMD or DMX model file. Now once you've created your model, which I've created a nice simple little model here just for example, we need to make a UV map, and this is the texture that will go onto the model, and we use the UV editing panel to do this. To make it easier, I would suggest joining your model together. Now you can make a separate document to do this in case you want to keep things separate for if you want to edit things later, but for now I'm just going to join them. So to select everything, press A, then to join everything, Control J. Now we've joined everything into one object, and we'll go into the UV editing panel. So we also have to select everything in the UV editing panel as well. So just press A again, and that will bring up your model's UV map here. Now you may want to adjust the spacings in between these. They might not look very nice to you, and you can do this by going to UV and Pack Islands. And I'm going to say a margin of 0.05. Pack that. Ooh, sorry, you need to select them first. Then Pack Islands, set that to 0.05. You can set it to whatever you want. It'll just space them out more the larger that is. And there we go, it's packed them a bit more nicely. Once it looks good to you, export by doing UV, export UV layout, and I'll just call this tutorial. And you can select things on here, all UVs, export tiles, the format, the size and the fill opacity, and we'll export that there. So that's what it looks like once you've exported it. Just grey, showing the lines, but it doesn't show the dots anymore. See the dots on here. Now for the next part, the actual texturing part, I recommend using GIMP, as it allows for magic selection of areas, for quicker selection and filling, although it's entirely up to your preference. If you've already got a software that you prefer using, just use that instead. But you can download GIMP from here. Pretty small. I'll also include all the links to this in the description of this video. But yeah, once you've got GIMP, this is my completed texture, but I'll load up that other texture too. So there you go, that's what it looks like once you've imported it into GIMP. And now I can show off this magic tool to show you how much easier it makes it. So select this and see it selects the ring of this quite nicely. And then you can press shift. Shift allows you to select more than one at once in case you want to fill all those things with one colour. And you can go through and select these. Now if it's a nice easy shape like this, you could probably just rectangular over it, but it's just showing you what you can do with the magic tool. Just makes it easier to select certain things. You can also select the entire outside, which may be slightly easier, and then you could just fill that. And also with GIMP you can use layers. So if I add a layer here, I'm not going to call it anything special, and then I'll paint that layer black, make another layer. This will be the layer for the colouring. Then if I can then use this layer to select these. Now if you were doing this method, you'd want to select these insides, because these bits you'll want to be transparent, and then just fill them all up. You press shift and then the bucket, it'll fill everything. I've actually filled those on the wrong layer. Just remember to select the right layers, shift and click that. We've filled all that out. So then we can just, using selected on the black layer, we can then easily select all of these. And then just for example, I'll fill them all. You can use pattern fills as well, which is quite nice. Gives you some examples, but then you can also import patterns into it. For example, I'll just use this one here. So there we've got a nice warning sign. And I'll export this. See, when you're using GIMP, if you save this now, it'll save it as a GIMP document, so you need to export it as well. So export as. Call this tutorial coloured. Export that. They'll ask some things as well, like compression level. Save the background colour. Now before I do that, I've actually forgot to hide this layer. So there we go, export as. Export, and there we go. So now I have a nice coloured image. Seems this part here has not came out properly. Because I didn't hide that layer as well. So just keep in mind when you're exporting to only have the layer that you want exported actually shown. So there we go. Have a look at this. There we go. We've got a nice enough UV pattern. Now that we've got that, we can go back into Blender. We want to go to layout. You want to find the material tab to actually see this in Blender. We're going to create a new material. Then you want to go to base color, click that yellow icon, go to image texture. It's just black now because we haven't selected an image yet. Go to open, and we'll click this one here. There we go. Doesn't that look nice? If you go back into UV editing, you can see that it's overlaid nicely on there. Now this is what it looks like with the texture that I made earlier. I had to reload Blender because the UV was in different location, so it didn't come out properly. But as you can see, it's already shown on this one. I just haven't joined everything together yet. So if I do A, Control J, there we go, everything's joined together. If I go to the material tab, we've got that material with the image loaded onto it, and you can see lovely little, totally not horrible model with texture. Okay, now that we've got that, we need to export to SMD. So what you need to do is go to the Scene tab, which is here. Go to Source Engine Export drop down menu. Make sure the export format is set to SMD. And we also need to specify an export path where your SMD file will be outputted. So if you click on that, go to and that's where I wanted to export mine. And on top of this, you also need to specify the directory where Studio model can be found. This will be in Steam Library / Steam Apps / Common / Team Fortress 2 / TF. So if I go click on this, Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, TF2, TF, and you don't need to select it, but it is there, so just accept. And then okay, once you've done that, make sure you've removed everything from here that isn't the model. So we've just got this now. We've set our export path, our export format, our engine path. Press export, and one file exported. It's just exported it as collection.smd, but I already have an SMD file here. One thing I do want to mention though is that in the SMD file, if I open this up here, if I look at the SMD file, you'll see that we have material 0.001 here. You need to change this to the material that you've assigned to your model. Now there's probably a better way to do this somewhere in here, but the way I've found to do it is to, I'm using Notepad++ by the way. In here we'll just go find and replace, and we'll replace that with which is my material name in one of the later files. So if we replace all, just replace material. Still need the 0.001. Just replace that with another name. If you get an error later on in the process, this is probably why you forgot to do this. But yeah, if anyone seeing this has a different way to do this instead of just going through the file and changing the names, please let me know. But this is the way I've found that works for now. So yeah, just make sure you change the material name in the SMD file, unless you just name your material. Okay, so now that's one file down and 3 to go. So the next file is the valve texture file, which we will get from here. So you need to download, well, we don't get it from here, this is the software, we get it from here. So you want to go to here, download VTF edit, file, import, select your image, we'll come up with some stuff here, should be fine. And there we go, we've got our image imported. And then once it loads up, save it. And I've already saved mine here, but you just name it this, just name all the files the same to make things easier. Yep, make sure you name this the same as your SMD file, or else things won't work later. Next is the VMT file. Now this is where things start to get a little bit tricky. If you really want to make complicated materials, I'm probably not the best person to explain it, but I'll give a brief overview. So as you've seen before, I use Notepad++. I recommend that you also use Notepad++ to create these scripts. It's what I actually wrote this video script in. There's a community made plugin for Notepad++ which highlights a lot of the Valve languages, which you might have seen here as to why is this all black. So to get this, you want to go to the GitHub for Notepad++ plugin. Also has some install instructions. So all you do is download everything on here and paste all the VDF etc .xml files into the app data file for Notepad++. I'll show you that here. App data, roaming, Notepad++, user defined languages, and there they are there, all the VDF files. And that's just some screenshots showing how it looks. And a lot of the stuff that I'm saying in this tutorial is also from the Valve Developer Community Wiki. This is creating a material. So Source doesn't access textures directly. Everything goes through a material. Materials are script files, which we'll be making shortly. This actually VMT is a material file. For your material to be detected, you must save it under your game or mods/materials folder with the extension .vmt. There are many shaders to choose from, but most materials will use either lightmap generic or vertex lit generic. So if I go to my mod folder here, if I go to my mod folder here, mod TF, materials, models, weapons, custom, and there we go, I have my VMT file and VTF file, which we'll be making. Oh no, we already made the VTF file, sorry. Yeah, so you want to put your VMT and your VTF file there. Now these folders here, custom, weapons, models, I created all of those. So like I said, there's many shaders to choose from, but most materials will use either lightmap generic or vertex lit generic. The third most common shader is unlit generic, which is used for UI materials and the occasional tool texture. And you can find a complete list of the shaders here. So we've got push and displacement, models, which is probably what we'll be using in this tutorial, post-processing, decals, special, ropes, multi-purpose. Oh look, pyro vision. Now once you've chosen a shader, you go on to parameters, also called commands. And here's a tip. To refresh a material in-game without restarting it, you can use a console command, which I'll show here. mat_reload material, and this will be you just have the VMT name, just without the .vmt and the quotation marks, so it'll just be the name of your .vmt file. Even though the mat_reload all materials command also exists, I wouldn't recommend using it since various artifacts may appear, and also, you know, you're reloading all materials, it'll take a little while. And there's also mat_reload textures, but it's very buggy. So like I said earlier, there's a quick introduction to this, but if you want to create crazy fancy custom textures, you're going to have to look into it yourself, or wait 7 years until I get round to doing a video series on it. So here's the code that I used for my model's VMT file. I've just highlighted what's on here. So the first part is vertex lit generic, that's the shader. Then once you've got the shader, you can define all the other parameters. So we've got the base texture, which is the texture we created, model, Fong, which if you're familiar with TF2, I'm pretty sure Fong is it's like a shiny glossy thing that goes over all textures. There's also got Fong Boost, Fong Exponent, and Fong Fresnel ranges. And if you want the generic thing here, I'll leave this in the description as well. Obviously I'll remove this part. Now if you're going to use that as in your model, just remember to change the $ base texture path. Remember, for your material to be detected, you must save it under your game or mods/materials folder with the extension .vmt. So there's no software to do this. You just open up Notepad, or you could just use basic Notepad, copy that out, and then save it as a VMT file, and then move that into the game or mods/materials folder. Like I said before, I had to create the weapons custom folders. I haven't mentioned it yet, but I'd love to hear in the comments what you think of my weapon name. If you don't know, pachyderm is like elephants, rhinos, hippos. It's an elephant rifle. It's a sniper rifle. And the reason I picked a sniper rifle is that it's probably the easiest weapon to implement, or one of the easiest weapons to implement. I say this, but then there's the charge mechanic and etc. It's not like might have been easier to implement a pistol for the engineer or something. Okay, moving on to the next part. This is our QC file, which is also a script file like the last one, but this one tells the source compiler how to build your model. Here's the one that I use for this weapon. So it just defines some things. So that tells it what my model name is going to be. So basically this QC file is the file that tells Crowbar how to put together everything at the end. And then we've got body my gun, SMD file, and it tells it where to find the materials file, tells it what surface property to use. Could also be a static property, but it's just left blank. And you've also got sequence idle. Now this would be for if you have animations for your weapon. Finally, we're on to the last part, putting it all together, which I like to call folder hell. So this is Crowbar. I haven't actually shown this yet, but this is where you download Crowbar from. It's actually the same website that you download VTF edit from. Once you've downloaded Crowbar and installed it, there's a few things that you need to do. You need to set up your games first. So if we go to the Setup Games tab, from this drop down you want to select TF2. Once you've selected that, you'll need the executable, game info, model compiler, model viewer, mapping tool and packer tool to completely set up. They'll be in similar locations to mine, besides the drive that I'm using, I guess. And also I'm running the mod executable. Once that's done, we'll need to compile the .model file. So we go to the compile tab, we put in where we're going to find our QC file. Your QC file should be in the same location as, so source STK, game, mod, since I'm guessing you're going to be using a mod, but if not, you just go to the Steam library. Models. So like last time I had materials, this time I have models. So models, weapons, custom, and there they all are. Even though I didn't use .dmx, I've also included it here. So we've got DMX, QC, SMD, VMT, VTF. Now these files here, custom, weapons, models, I created all those files, so you'll have to create them as well. I'm going to change the output to there. Now once you've got all those files in the right location, got your work folder set up, set your game that has the model compiler, click compile. And there we go, no issues, it's finished. And there we go, models, weapons, custom, pachyderm puncher, .mdl. Now it's time to view that sexy model. So we can click using view directly in the compiling section of Crowbar to view the model, or we can view it in the view panel. So I'm going to use the view panel just in case the other option doesn't work for you. So just select the right model, select so it's still got the model file up here. That would be if you click this one, view, but since I clicked open viewer, it's just going to open up the Half-Life model viewer. And then go to load. This is another model that I set up, but I'll show you with this one. So models, weapons, custom, there we go, open this one, and there you have it. There is your model in all its glory. Isn't it lovely? And thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it was informative enough for you to be able to create your own models. I'm just going to make another mention of the .smd file. Again, just remember to change the material from whatever it was. So it was just material when we exported the SMD. Just change it to whatever your material is called. And for simplicity, I just named it the same as my model file. Keep things simple, less chances to make mistakes. But I suppose if you want to use the material for different things, you can name it something else.